All right, Math 7, 8.5, graphing a coordinate grid. So right here, I have a coordinate grid, and I'm going to write some things in here. This up and down axis, we call them, these lines, these are called axes or axis. Okay, so right here we have our vertical axis. So vertical, your vertical jump is like how high you can jump. And then you have your horizontal axis. You'll need to know those two words. It's like the horizon, right? Where the sky meets the land. Now, the vertical axis is also sometimes called the y-axis. Y? I think uncommon letter on a keyboard or for a typewriter back in the day, maybe. And the horizontal is often called the x-axis. It isn't, those won't always be what they are, but it's in math, it's what's going to be. Now, graphs are useful for a lot of different things, and we'll get to that later in the unit. I mentioned this already, I believe, in the past, but the center is where 0x, the x value, so where it is 0, and the vertical axis where it is on here is 0. Some graphs will go 1, 2, 3, 4, and they'll number. Every line is a new number, right? So anything on this line would be x-axis 0. Anything on this would be x-axis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kind of like a ruler. If you think about it, it's like a ruler. You got your 0, and then you move a little bit to the right to that line. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. And the y-axis works like a ruler going up, usually, is positive. Now, if we go the other side, this next line would be -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and so forth. And going down, this point was 0. One gap would be -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. Now the range of this, if you think about it, on the vertical axis, the y-axis, the range would be this top number, subtract the bottom number. So on the y-axis, the range is 5 subtract -7, which is the same thing as 5 plus. Remember, that looks like a plus sign. 5 plus 7, so it's 12. And if you started at this bottom, this -7, and counted up, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to get to this top number. And here we have 7 subtract -8. Which is 7 plus 8, which is 15. And if you counted starting at -8, this line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so that's range. And there's one last terminology for this lesson that would be important to know. There are things called quadrants. Okay, now there's things called quadrants. I didn't mean to put an S there. And this top right quadrant is called quadrant 1. And then you have quadrant 2 is this one to the left, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Okay, so it goes top right, top left, bottom right, just kind of in a circle. It's kind of like reading a book, except the top two are flipped. So just remember that the one that has positive and positive, so they'd be positive on your y-axis and your x-axis, would be quadrant 1. And then you know that 2 is up here, and then it just goes in a loop. You could also think that it's counterclockwise, so it's not the way the clock goes, it's the other way, starting from where it's positive and positive. All right, let's draw a couple points, and I'm going to show you how to write out some points on this graph. All right, I've drawn a point here, and labeled it A. Now looking here, when we draw what labeling points, we draw the letter that's what the point is represented with. So point A is this point here. It's not where the A is, it's the point, and the A is just labeling it. And then we always start with our x-axis. Always start with x-axis. Okay, so on this x-axis, where would this A line up with? It would line up with 5. So we start with 5. So A bracket 5. Then we put a comma. And where is it on the y-axis? Well, on the y-axis, where is it? It's in line with -2. So it'd be A is found at 5 and -2. Okay? I'm just going, then y-axis. Okay? So it should look like letter, and then it would be your x, and then your y. Okay? Now don't get confused, because the lines, these lines that kind of mark where the numbers are on the axes, the x-axis, the one where x is 0, it is the line that represents the vertical axis, the y-axis. But if you think about a ruler, you're measuring this way on a ruler, but there's those lines that are the markers are perpendicular to it. So just remember that the ones that are like the flat left-right is x-axis, and the ones that are up-down are the y-axis. Okay, let's do a couple more points. All right, I know this is getting a little crowded, but up here is B. Okay, B. Now, which number goes first? It's the one that is on the x-axis. So where does this line up with on the x-axis, which is this one that goes across? It lines up with -2. So it's bracket -2, not 2, but -2. And where is it with the y-axis? It's 5. Okay. What about C over here? I was also going to do D over here. Let me draw that in. C. Well, x-axis is first. It's this one that goes left and right. So where along is it? It's the -6. And it is with -1. Okay. What about D over here? It's at 7. And then it's at 5. Okay. Now what you're going to notice is any number that or point that's in quadrant 1 is going to be both positive. Any point in quadrant 2 is going to have x negative, y positive. Any point in quadrant 3 is going to be negative and negative. And any point in quadrant 4 will be positive x and negative y. You're going to notice some people draw arrows on their axes at the end. You don't need to have them. I like drawing them just to make sure it's clear that, hey, this could keep going to 8 or 9 or 10 and so forth. Here's an example question. Which quadrant would E9 and -4 be in? And then we're going to draw it. So let's draw it to figure this out. Well, remember, first is x, second is y. So x, find 9. Well, we don't have enough room, but if we keep counting, there'd be 8, 9. It would be somewhere on this one. And -4 means down. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Right here in line with -4. So +9, -4. This is E. And it's 9, -4. Where is it? It's in quadrant 4. Quad 4, I'm going to write. One other note, you'll notice we don't put a positive sign when it's a positive number. It's implied. If there isn't a positive sign, it just means positive. It's only if it's negative do we need to make sure we put a negative sign. Just a note about this, x-axis means left, right, so you'll move left, right, and then you'll move up or down, okay? Let's do another one. Let's draw another. So F is at 0 and 6. So remember, first is our left-right motion. So start at the middle, and we need to go 0. Oh, we're there already. And then 6 is our up and down. So we need to go up 6 right here. That's our F is 0, 6. This one, is it in quadrant 1 or quadrant 2? Well, technically it's in neither, but it's between quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. It isn't between the other quadrants over here, but it's between these, so it'd be right on the line there. And G, -4 and -3. So first is left, right. So go 1, 2, 3, 4 in the negative direction, and then -3, 1, 2, 3. There it is. G is -4, -3. All right, we're going to do one example. This would be similar to something you might see on the assignment. It says here we need to plot these points on this grid and then find D, which would make a parallelogram if you were to join all of these points together with lines. Now, you're going to look, these numbers are a lot bigger than the ones we had earlier in this lesson. And you're probably going to think, well, how am I supposed to fit this on my paper? It goes from -25 to 20. I don't have 45 squares across. What do I do? Well, looking at these numbers, they are all multiples of what number? 5, right? They're all multiples of 5. So that means that each of these lines you could go up or down by 5. So let's start in the middle and do origin is 0. Now usually you actually write your numbers below the line on here. Doesn't have to, but usually you do. So you go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. And here, going up, we go 5. Just keep it consistent. If you're left side of the line, keep the rest to the left. Okay. And then it goes -5, -10, -15, -20, -25. And then let's plot these points. Always start with our left, right, and then do up, down. So 25, that's right, 25. And then 20 is up. So up to 20 from that 25. And that is point A. Next, B. Oops, bumped the camera. B says -15, -25. So go -15, -25. Left, right first, and then up, down. This is B. Okay. C is 25 and -25. What did I do wrong? I went up, down first. I need to always go left, right first. Okay, so 25. And then -25. So that's C, which is, because the question has this, we won't write it, but if you're making a graph for maybe some report or something you're doing in the future, you would. Okay. Now it says that this makes a parallelogram. So looking at these, if we connect these, right? And we want to make these into a parallelogram. Well, that's going to need to go right here, right? Where would these cross, right? To make a parallel line, where would these cross? They cross right here at point D, which is what? What's the coordinates of D? Well, on the x-axis, it's at -15. Oop. -15, and then up to 20, right? So it's -15, 20. That's what D is. One last note, coordinate grids are sometimes called Cartesian planes. It's named after a guy who was really good at math. It's named after René Descartes. I don't know how they got Cartesian, maybe Descartes, Cartesian, that might be it, who is a French mathematician, I believe.